big thank you to Jacques for hosting us again tonight. I know this is our last session, Jacques. This is our 6th week of lockdown tonight, and hopefully we're going to have a good address by the President tonight. Waiting in anticipation of hopefully some good positive news tonight. I keep thinking of this like being in the army. You know, Jacques, were you in the army? You're too young to have been in the army.
I fortunately skipped it.
You missed that bullet.
But I had to go and study first.
Okay, so in the army we used to call it our clearing out days, and it always referred to it as Mindar. And I suppose the difference then is we had an end goal in sight, and we knew what was coming. Unfortunately, now we don't, and we're all waiting in with bated breath for tonight's announcement, and really hoping that it's going to be positive for us in our industry. So yeah, and looking forward to tonight's session. And I've got a glass of water, but I think tonight I should have poured a glass of whiskey, but I've got a glass of water in front of me, Jacques. So yeah, you go ahead, and great to have everyone on board tonight.
Great, thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for you and your team to allowing me to spend some time with you. I'm looking forward to this night. There's still a few people coming in. I'm just going to admit them as we go along, but let's kick off this event. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to reflect a bit on what we have discussed last week. Last week, we spoke about a mindset. We spoke about having a positive mindset and how important that is. You know, there's so many things that we cannot control. You know, we cannot control what the president is going to say tonight. We cannot control a lot of the environment. We cannot control the virus. But what we can control is our mindset. And you know, I've spoken to a lot of business people. I know it is immensely tough out there. You know, we're hearing some bad news all the time. I've heard today that Time Freight, one of the couriers companies, they're in business rescue. You know, there's a lot of the travel agent businesses that are in business rescue. So, you know, the proverbial blood on the streets is definitely happening out there. And, you know, you've got an absolute choice, you know, or a reason to have a negative mindset. But I'd like to share with you just briefly a story about the two sons. And the one son was a very famous doctor, actually, and a very famous surgeon, and obviously very successful. You know, created a lot of wealth. And he got interviewed by a journalist, and the journalist asked him, "But you know what, Mr. Doctor? It's amazing. You know, your career has been so successful, and I've done a bit of research on your past, and you know, I found out that your dad was a bit of a criminal, and he actually ended up in jail. So how come you are so successful? You know, what made you so successful?" And he looked at the journalist and he said, "Well, you know, what do you expect? I come from an environment where it was absolute chaos. And I vowed to myself that I would never have that. And, you know, so that's where I am today." And then the journalist did some research and found out that the successful brother had another brother. And she went and she interviewed him. She went to go and interview him in jail. And she asked him the same question, like, you know, your brother is so successful and you're in jail. How did that happen? He says, "What did you expect? My father was a criminal. He ended up in jail. How else could I not end up in jail?" So the moral of the story is, you know, we can't always control our circumstances, and we can't always control what happens to us. But the one thing that we can control is our mindset. And I really want to urge you, I'm going to talk a bit about that again tonight, is what can we do to ensure that we are framing ourselves in a mindset that is conducive to running a successful business. And I'm not sitting here and saying to you that you've got to ignore the circumstances that we are. Sure, we've got to take cognizance of that, but we've got to plan. And the planning of that is extremely important. Then last week, I also shared with you a future business tool. That was emailed to everybody. If you did not get hold of that, or if you perhaps weren't able to attend last week, please reach out to either myself or to Jean. But there's a future business tool, and the purpose of that tool is really to get yourself into a mindset when all of this is going to end. And that I can share with you as a fact, that this too shall pass. How the new world would look like, well, I'm not sure, but all I know is that people are still going to live in houses. I think we're still there, where people are going to live in homes, and it's your job, and it's going to be your job to find homes for people. So that's still going to be, and I want to encourage you to get a mindset that you know what your future business is going to look like. And then we spoke about dashboards. We spoke about a weekly dashboard, and I briefly want to just share with you an individual dashboard, which I didn't necessarily share with you last week. So if you recall, this is the dashboard that I shared with you last week, a weekly dashboard. And the purpose of this dashboard is really to help your agents monitoring and tracking their activities. Because if they've got their activities tracked and they're starting to do that, yes, sure, they're not necessarily going to get OTP signed. And yes, sure, they're not going to get transfers. But you know what? I want your agents to be the agents that when the lockdown is lifted, that they hit the road running. That they don't then start to go, oh, okay, all right, how many sales calls do we have to do? Oh, okay, let's start to create some brand awareness. And I wondered what my password is to log in, because I haven't logged in and I've forgotten my password. You don't want that. You want your agents, you want your people to really hit the road running. And the only way to do that is to start practicing and doing the right activities. And that's what the lead indicators are. And you'll see on this page, what I've done is, and we're happy to share this with you afterwards, is get the agents to do it on a daily basis. And then once you've got a daily, you can look at the summary of the week, which is really what you want to do. Is you want to have a look at what was the total that they have achieved. So if you look in this total column here, compare that to what their target was, and understand what the variance is. And when you start going through this, and all I've done here is I've just indicated some possible activities. And you've got to refine this for your own business, but you've got to look at how many introductory emails were sent, or how many phone calls were made, and distinguish between phone calls to new clients and phone calls that are follow-ups. And how many meetings have they had with potential clients, and how much information have they emailed through to potential clients. And here on the weekly target, you put the target that they want, because what you really want is you want this to be filled in, because you want your agents, you want your people to have a focused mindset. Because when you have a focused mindset, people ignore the noise around them. When the mind isn't focused, it delves into the noise, it delves into the situation. And that's not necessarily conducive to the type of behavior that you want to promote, or the type of habits that you want people to instill to drive into a scenario of progressiveness. It's not about just surviving. Yeah, sure, we've got to survive now, but in the end, you also want to thrive. And we're going to talk a bit about, the theme of the session is value proposition. What is your value proposition? And we're going to talk about that. You've got to get these activities right, because if you don't get these activities right, your value proposition is not going to stand out. Okay, so this is an extremely valuable tool. I've used it with many clients, and it does two things. The tool creates focus, and it also creates an opportunity to understand who's in the game and who's not in the game. Because if you're not in the game, you're not going to do that. And this doesn't take time. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled by anybody saying to you, oh, but you're giving me extra admin. It's not. They should be tracking this in any event. So when you write down the amount of emails, you should be tracking who you're sending what to. And all we're asking you is just to fill in the total. That should literally be at the end of your day, take you no less than 2 minutes just to fill that in, add up your scores, and be able to reflect on your activities of the day. If people aren't doing that, they're not being A players, they're not being serious about their future, and you've got to ask a question, is that the type of person or individual that you want in your business? And remember what we said in the previous sessions, is have those uncomfortable conversations as soon as possible. Don't necessarily wait for after lockdown. Because I can promise you, after lockdown, life is going to be different and you're going to have 10,000 other things to focus on. All right, let's move along. So this is basically what we chatted about last week. And we've also, this has been a theme through all of these, the 4 seminars, is first things first. And the first thing is that you've got to do is look after yourself. I want to repeat that if you are not on top notch, if you're not on top of your game, how can you expect anybody else to be on top of their game? You know, and I get it that you have your down days too. But when you have your down days, make sure that you've got a buddy, you know, that you've got a buddy system, or you've got a coach, or you've got a mentor, or somebody that you can share your stuff with, that you can unload, and that you don't unload onto your team. You know, I'm not saying that you should be false to your team. I'm not saying that you should not project the correct thing, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't tell them the truth, and that you've got to be human, but don't dump all your negative energy or your negative emotion onto your teams. And make sure that you are looking after yourself, that you are that you are healthy, that you've got a healthy body, that promotes good decision making. And the reality is, each and every one of us are in the position that we are because of the decisions we've made. So if you want to change your life, change your decisions. And your decisions stem directly from how healthy you are. Because when you've got a healthy mind, you make healthy decisions. All right, so I'm going to share with you a bit more about looking after yourself tonight. I just want to remind you that looking after your team is also just as important after you've looked after yourself, checking in with them and making sure that everybody is okay. Making sure, because you know what? At the end of the day, people just want to know that you care. And all you've got to show to your team is that you care. Sure, you won't be able to solve all their problems. Sure, you might not be able to give them the loans that they want to be able to keep them alive. But that's okay. I know that, you know, that's important, but people also just want to know that you care. People really, really want to know that you care. And as long as you can display that, your team will follow you. And then after that, you've got to look after your business. And we've spoken about that in the previous sessions. You've got to make sure that your cash flow is right. Face the brutal facts and then start to plan. You know, because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you've got to make sure that you know what road you're on, that you know where you've got to squeeze, and that you've catered for the worst case scenario. Okay, so that's first things first. Let's have another look at you. Your business is a reflection of you. And you've got to make sure that you understand what is your mission. Now, you might look at me and you might, answer me and say, but Jacques, my mission is just to freaking survive this COVID-19, this COVID-19 epidemic. I say, sure. I mean, I get that surviving the COVID-19 epidemic is a priority for you, but it's definitely not your mission. Your mission is something much greater than that. Your mission is something that really drives you and compels you to know why you're waking up every morning. You know, what is your reason for existence? You know, I'm a firm believer that we've got to leave this earth a better person than what we've entered it. And you know, the reality is all of us were born, and the other reality is all of us are going to depart from planet Earth at a stage. And in between, we've got life. And your job is to be a better human day by day, and live towards that. And one of the main things that you need to understand what your purpose is. Because once you understand what your purpose is, and last week I shared with you a book from Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Because this is the thing that's going to pull you through COVID because of the uncertainty. Because if you know what your mission is, if you know what your purpose is, you'll be able to deal with COVID and the uncertainty that is aligned with that much easier. Because COVID has given us the uncertainty, and the biggest uncertainty is we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know when lockdown is going to end, and we don't know when we're going to start our businesses. And that is driving everybody crazy. That's a fact. I'm speaking to a lot of business owners. I'm speaking to a lot of people, and I know that. And my biggest advice is yeah, sure, I get that. That's tough. I'm not diluting that, and I'm not diminishing that. That's tough. But what I'm also saying is that there's more than one way to look at a problem. There always is. Benjamin Zander wrote a beautiful book called The Art of Possibility. If you haven't read The Art of Possibility yet, please do me a favor, do yourself a favor, do your team a favor, do the people around you a favor, and get The Art of Possibility. And in that, Benjamin Zander reflects, and I love it. He says, for every problem, there's at least 10 solutions, at least, as a minimum. And the problem is just we haven't expanded our minds to think of so many solutions. So there's so many ways to tackle it. And what I'm sharing with you today and what I'm suggesting is that there's so many ways to look at this COVID epidemic. And one of the ways to do it is to say, but what's my purpose in all of this? You know, how am I going to live out my mission going forward after this epidemic? How am I going to live that out to make sure that I'm leaving a legacy, to make sure that I'm leaving this earth a better person than what I've entered? You know, this is an ideal time to get your mind straight and to get your mind focused on your mission and let your vehicle, your business, be a vehicle for that. Now imagine that. That's where you want to take yourself. That's where you want to take your business. So here are some examples of what your mission could be or what your purpose could look like. And I've just dotted these down. I've seen them before. Some of my clients have used them. I use them. So the first one is very much part of what I'm about, and that's to help people succeed. I love to see people succeeding. And that's my mission with clients, is to get them, is to put down a company success plan or a personal success plan and help them achieve that. But that's me. So for you, it might be something different. For you, it might be something to inspire through creativity. And you'll notice that each one of these statements, they're not a goal. So you don't get to a stage where you can tick it off and say, yes, I've done it, I've achieved it. This is your lifelong mission. This is your purpose. This is something that you strive for on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. This is not something which you tick off. It's part of your DNA. It's part of what you think about, and it's your reason for existence. And I thought maybe the last one here that I've put down as an example might resonate with you, and that's to match people with a perfect home. You know, and if that's your purpose, if that's how you see it, then maybe that's something that you want to consider could be a possible purpose for you. And here are some resources that I think could be very useful for you in finding your purpose. So Clayton Christensen, he was a professor at Harvard. He wrote this book, How Will You Measure Your Life? Brilliant book in terms of finding fulfillment and for finding your purpose. There's a bunch of other books that I have as well that I can recommend to you. So if you want any other recommendations, please just pop me a mail or a WhatsApp. I'll share my details with you right at the end. But I thought, you know, this is probably one of the top 10 books that I would recommend. And if you also want, he's got a great TED Talk, How Will You Measure Your Life? Clay Christensen. He talks a bit slow. The guy, as you can see, he's wearing a wig. He's been around, but he has got a lot of wisdom and really, really worthwhile to hear what Clay has to say about how you want to measure your life. Okay, and I want to repeat this. This is a quote that I repeated or that I shared with you the last time we were together. And that's the most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose. backed by a definite plan. So we're not just saying a purpose and then leaving it at that. I want to reiterate that a plan is important, but a plan without a purpose is absolutely useless, because you don't know where you're going to go. That's the scenario where if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. If you don't know where you're going, any plan will take you there. But if you do it with a purpose, if you do it with a destination, if you do it knowing where you want to go, the plan just makes sense, and the plan is then linked with your purpose. Okay. So urging you to work on your mindset, making sure that you are controlling your mind, making sure that you've got habits in place, and making sure that you understand what your purpose is. All right, so that's the first session, or the section of our time that we are investing together today. That's about you and making sure that you are the best business owner that you can be for your business and for your people and for yourself and your family. The next question that we've got to ask ourselves, so just to recap, in the past we've looked at the cash flow projections. We knew that was important. We then looked at the dashboard, which was really talking about the sales activities and the activities that you've got to monitor in your business. And now the third thing is really looking at what value are you offering. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just have a quick look at why value is so important and why I am emphasizing value as a key issue that you want. And ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to use the chat box. You'll see that there's an icon called chat. It's right at the bottom of your screen, or should be right at the bottom of your screen. It's called chat. Just go in there and feel free to use it. You'll see it's a little pop-up box that comes up. It says Zoom group chat, and just enter some questions. If you've got questions or you want to make a statement, please feel free to interact as I go through this seminar with you. All right, so back at the seminar, what value are you offering, and why is it important that you can articulate the value that you are offering your clients more than anybody else? So the first reason it will give you more revenue. So if you are clear about your value, and your value, you don't see your value offering as just a commodity. You don't see it as just, we are renting properties because everybody else does it, and we've got a book, and we've got to look at these people so that I can put bread on the table. If you're not clear about it, you will not grow your revenue. You will not get more revenue, because clients need to like what you do. You need to do more than just the obvious. And if clients like that, they will come to you. And how they will come to you is they will be referred to you, because people like to share good experiences. So when you are conscious, so if you've got a mindset of adding value, and if you are conscious about that, what will happen is you will start to focus on that. And when you focus on value, you're putting energy into it. And wherever energy goes into, it creates momentum. When you talk about value creation once a month or once a year at a strategic session or as a New Year's resolution, it's not good enough, because you're not giving it the energy that it deserves. When you talk about value creation, you've got to be extremely sure what that is and hammer on it. In other words, talk about it regularly. Talk about it to your staff, review it, and make sure that the value that you're offering your clients is the value that your clients are experiencing. So value creation is extremely, extremely important. The second thing that we've got to look at is why it is important. It will give you bigger market share. Why will it give you bigger market share? Because your competitors can't do it. If you're seeing your value as exactly the same as anybody else, it's not value. It's a commodity. It's not value. It's everybody does it. Everybody has to have it. There's no differentiator, and you are not creating value. You are just delivering what everybody else does and what your competitors does. And that's an issue, because I can promise you that if your business isn't growing, If you aren't growing with your business, they both will die. And coronavirus will ensure that it dies sooner rather than later. You know, this pandemic has almost lifted our sense of urgency of how we've got to tackle the market. Because if we don't tackle the market, it's going to be the survival of the fittest. And if you're not tackling this market, and if you're not adding value to it, I can give you a check that your business will not survive. And if you're not starting to think differently about this, I'm afraid to say that life is going to be pretty tough, and business is going to be pretty tough for you. And then the last thing why it's important to add value is because you attract A players. People like working with winners. People like to be on the winning side. You know, everybody can remember, or you know, most of us can remember when we were in preschool, and they had to have two teams, which it was, you know, it was either the kissing touches team or just touches, or maybe just soccer, and people got picked. You wanted to be picked in the team where the winners are, because people like that. They like to play, and people like to win. So that's why it's important that you ensure that you can articulate the value that you're creating in your business very, very clearly. So I'm going to share with you tonight a tool that I use with my clients that has been very successful. It's a tool that I found. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I've used it in my own business, and I've used it with clients, and I can highly recommend your use of it. But as any tool, it starts with a mindset. You've got to understand the thinking behind the tool. So let me explain that to you in the next slide of what this tool looks like. And this is what it is. It's called the Value Proposition Canvas. Now, the Value Proposition Canvas was designed by strategizer.com. You can go onto their website. They've got, you know, these tools. You can freely download it from them. I bought the books and I use them in many shapes and forms in my business with clients. So let's go through this slowly. So first of all, it's a value proposition. Second, you'll see at the top there, it talks about a customer segment. And in your case, you've got two customer segments. You've got the landlords, which are part of your customers, and you've got tenants, or you've got potential buyers. And each of these are different. You've got to treat them differently. And that's what makes your environment quite unique, but also quite challenging and interesting and complex. So it's a challenge, you know, and when we present it with challenges, it's actually fun. And it's important that you see that as fun, because if you don't see that as fun, you're probably in the wrong business, and you should find yourself another type of business to run. If business isn't fun for you, in the long run, sure, I get it. Maybe not now at this moment, but in the long run, definitely it has to be. And it will be if it's in line with your purpose. Okay, so let's go to the circle on the right firstly. So there you will see we're talking about the customer's job. So really what I'm saying, and I'll take you through an example now, is you've got to understand your customer. You've got to understand who and what they are. You've got to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And you remember I used the tool why. I shared the tool why with you in previous conversations. You've got to ask why 5 times to really get to understand what it is that your customer wants. You know, and if we talk about landlords, we've got to understand what that means. And we'll take you through an example after this. But your first port of call, where you've got to start, is with your customers, and ask yourself the question is, how well do I understand my customer? And it's not a blanket approach, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot say, yeah, just property customers are all the same. Sure, there are elements of the same, but I've seen it in the franchises that in different areas, there's different landlords, and they've got different issues, and they do things for different reasons. So you've got to understand what it is, and you must be careful to go too high level on this. You've got to go and ask deep questions about what your customer is. And if you want any of those questions, you can download it from the strategizer.com website. They're full of information. I just can't share everything with you here tonight. There's just not enough time, but there's a lot of value to be asked. I usually, run these workshops over a half day or a full day, or otherwise over a few coaching sessions with clients to really get to the bottom of what it is that their customers and consist of. Then you've got to go and understand, what is the customer, why is the customer doing what he's doing? What gains is the customer looking for? And then also, what is the pains that this customer wants to prevent? We've got to be very clear about that. And we'll share that with you in more detail in the next slide. So once you understand that, you understand your customer, you know what they're up to, you know what they're doing, you understand why they're doing it, what is the gains they want to achieve with it, or what is the pains that they want to prevent. You can then go and say, but what type of pain relievers will they be looking at? What type of gain creators would they be looking at? And how does my product or service fit into that space? And that's very important to ask. So let's tackle an example straight away. And what I've done is I've worked with landlord, and I've just taken an example. So here you'll see on the left-hand side, here is the customer segment, is the landlord. And I went and I said, let's go and unpack who they are. And this is just an example. And we can say, well, a landlord is somebody in this customer segment, it's their second property that they owned. They are salaried employees. Maybe they graduated, they live in Bloem, and they own a second property at the coast. Okay, so this is an example of what a landlord could look at. So now we've got to go and say, okay, so now that we understand who they are, in other words, if we go to the first one, we look at the customer's jobs. So we understand that. We now go and we say, okay, what gains are they looking for? Well, they're looking for a holiday home at the coast. So that's the gain they want. Is they want the second property so that they can also go to the coast during the December holidays. So that's the gain that they want to achieve. And the pains that they have is, it's the maintenance of this home. It's the security and crime and maybe bond repayments. And that's some of the pains that they are experiencing in the second home that they have. Cool. So once we understand that, and once we've unpacked that, we can then go and say, all right, let's have a look at our product services, what they are. And we can say, well, we can rent this property for you. We've got a maintenance contract on it. And we can look at possible gain creators. And we can say, well, what we can do is we can do short-term rental placements. In that way, your property is still available in December or at certain periods. And you can still enjoy your gain because we understand you, we know what you want, and we'll make sure that we're very, very good at doing short-term placements. Then in terms of the pain relievers, and what you'll notice with most clients, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's funny, the pains are usually more than the gains. And that's just a fact of life. People's behavior, and if you talk to psychologists and you look at the research from psychologists, you will understand that people change their behavior much more when they are in pain as when they want a gain. So when you understand people's pain, you've got much more of an opportunity to move them as opposed to just going for the gains. So I find that extremely interesting, always being a positive person and a glass half full type of person. I find it interesting that, to be able to move people, you actually got to focus more on pain than actually on gain. But be it as it may, it's important to get the whole picture, to understand gains and to understand pain relievers. And once you do that, you get to unpack and say, okay, through pain relievers, what can we do? Well, we can put a maintenance contract in place, and maybe that's for an additional fee, so it's not just a placement fee. And the reason why we can do that is we've got approved suppliers, we've got 24-hour turnaround time, so we started getting clear about our value proposition. Also, we have got a database of expats, and they like this short-term leases. They don't like long-term leases, and companies usually pay it. So 6 months is perfect for them, which really means that you can still have your holiday home at the coast and you've got opportunity to frequent it. And also we maybe have got good contact connections with security companies. And through that, we are able to ensure that we can relieve your pain on the security or the crime issues that you might be concerned about, having a property at the coast that is not necessarily always occupied. So ladies and gentlemen, this value proposition design is really just an example, but what I'm trying to share with you is the value that it is to go and dive into understanding your customer segments. Because what you ideally would want to do is you would want to do this for both segments. I've just taken here for your landlords, but you would ideally want to do this for your tenants as well, and understand them. And once you understand these, your value proposition just becomes so much more clearer. And once your value proposition is clearer, you will know where to hone your activities on. You will know that what is important and where you should not slack, and that, maybe you'll start tracking your 24-hour turnaround times to make sure that value offering is really not just a promise that's smoke in the air, but that it's really a promise that you stand by because you measure it. So you know exactly when you are getting calls, and you know exactly how long it takes to resolve those calls for people's properties that you are looking after. And that's a promise that you make to your clients. And that becomes part of your value offering, especially if it's a pain for a landlord and they've had bad experiences in the past. They would want to know, so what are you going to do differently? What makes you so special? Why should I go for you instead of any of the other letting agencies in the area? And when you are compelling with this, I can promise you, you will achieve what we've mentioned there right in the beginning, is, achieving more revenue, bigger market share, and attracting A players. When you are clear about your value, that's where your business will start to go. And that's how you can ensure not only your business will survive in the short run, because that is the immediate concern that we have, is that our businesses survive through this pandemic. But after we have survived, we want to get to a position where we are thriving. And we can only do that. We can only do that when we are clear about the value that we are adding to our clients. And this is an amazing tool that you could use. I've used it many times, as I've said, and it absolutely works, and gives a lot more perspective to how you can grow your business. This is the book reference that I spoke about. You'll see there at the top, pdfdrive.com. You can actually obtain this book from that link. I've shared that link with you previously. Great link. I've downloaded many books from there, and this is one of the books that you can get from there. It reads very easily. It's very well put together, easy to understand. Alternatively, you're more than welcome to contact me. I'll help you go through it and implement that. Paul, I just want to open up the conversation a bit now, see if there's any input from your side in terms of the value proposition for Just Property, and knowing that it's different in all the franchises. I'm sure you've obviously experienced that as well, that even though you've got a global or a national brand, that there are nuances that are different. And though it might be a global brand and something that we're working towards to getting Just Property a household name, there are the nuances, and the only way to deal with the nuances and to do that is actually to understand each area specifically.
Absolutely, Jacques. There are certain things that are relevant to certain areas, but I think some of the underlying basics apply across the whole network. And your defining, the value proposition and understanding our customer segments. I think coming out of this particular situation of COVID is, so I think, more important than ever for us to understand and define our customer and what it is that our customers want. Because I think what our customers used to want and what our customers are going to want coming out of this could be very different. And I think a little bit of an application and brainstorming around facts like this are going to help us possibly reshape what it is we do in our businesses, because of different needs and different wants that people are going to have coming out of a circumstance like this, Jacques. I certainly feel that people are going to react and behave in somewhat different ways to what we used to.
Absolutely, Paul. And I think, a big question that could be pondering is, how do we get this info? How do we know these gains and pains from our customers? Jacques is now sitting here and telling us how important it is, but where on earth do I get the information? And the reality is, Paul, I think what we have to do is we've got to phone our clients. We've got to phone our landlords, have conversations with them, but structured conversations where we dot down what their gains and their pains. Other way to put that, what is their fears that they are currently having? How is your current landlords that you have and that whose properties you are looking after, what are their fears of the future? And start to find a trend in your area, and make sure that you then brainstorm with your team to develop a pain reliever. Because I can imagine that in these times we're going to have a lot more pain reliever, a lot more pains coming out of the mouth of our customers than that what gains specifically are going to come out. Hey, Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, Jacques, I think off the back of that, again, understanding our clients, so asking the questions. I attended a webinar this morning of sort of a whole bunch of British real estate agents and British real estate organizations. So there was agents, organization, tech company leaders, be it technology and real estate, various real estate parties debating various things, and from rentals to sales. And I think one of the key takeaways was that, this age-old people just being a number is gone. So if you've got a database or a rental book of 500 or 300 people, they're not a number. They're not just tenants. These are people that we've got to value. So and they need to mean more to us than just being a tenant. This word tenant, even, we need to personalize these things a lot more. People want to be heard. People want to know that we care about them. And I think these are the sort of things that we really need to be focusing on coming out of this. So you're highlighting the fact that, question them, what are their pains, is very much, I think, a very important aspect that we need to take out of a session like this. And we need to understand that, just these mass mailers that we send to people is not something that is particularly as relevant as it used to be. People want to be heard. People want you to pick up the phone. As hard as it might be, if we're running a big book, if you've got a few hundred clients, we've got to try and find ways of touching base with them and communicating and hearing them. So I think a very relevant point there, Jacques.
Yeah, Paul, I'm loving what I'm hearing from you. The fact that it's not just a number. I think we're going into a seriously personalized world. And if your tenants and your landlords aren't feeling like you understand them, they're going to find somebody that does. So I think, first of all, Paul, the strategy has to maintain your current clients in your current book. And to phone them and to make sure that you understand them. What are their pains? What are their gains? And once you've collected that data, you can then start to build and say, okay, how can we expand our business? To take it forward and to make sure that we are the competition that everybody is looking at, not anybody else.
Yeah. So Jacques, I think also, a lot of us have sort of had this fear, I think, in the back of our minds of technology and disruption in various sectors. And certainly, you know, we've sort of had it at the forefront of our minds in our sector, because we've seen it start to appear. And I think as much as this COVID has certainly pushed technology to the forefront, at the same time, I think it's taken technology to the back. So the importance, you know, I'm sort of contradicting myself, but technology is going to be so important going forward, but it's not going to be everything. You know, I think, you know, we were also scared that to a certain extent, technology might disrupt and take an agent out of the equation. I think a circumstance like this has shown us the importance of technology in our industry, and that we need to ensure we embrace technology to create efficiencies for people. But more than ever, people are relying on people. People need people. They need to have emotions applied to things. And I think that's at least, I think, put a far less burden on us as an industry to realize that we're going to remain very, very relevant as long as we're making people, our business is very much more people-centric and focused on providing solutions for our customers. And I think, you know, using technology to an extent, definitely. But after all, it's going to be that emotional thing that we're there to care for them, to take care of them, and to solve the problems for them.
Absolutely, Paul. And I mean, I was listening to a speech of Adrian Gore a day or two ago. And, you know, people were asking him about how does he see and predict the future. And, you know, he said exactly that. Although technology has been an enabler, what he thinks is technology is going to have a big effect on travel, especially international travel. So technology is going to have an impact, but he says you can never take away that human connection, that the hustling that we like to do as people. You know, and agents, they hustle for property, and that aspect was, you know, is always going to be there. So that to me is refreshing, that, you know, that's still going to be relevant in the new world, but how we travel and how we do a few other things are definitely going to be enhanced by technology as an enabler to do that human connection a lot more in depth and a lot more regular.
Absolutely, Jacques. And I see we've got a comment here. I'm just going to read quickly. To all, was the projected drop in rental collection? Somebody's taking us off this topic, Jacques, and straight into the question that I think is on so many of the callers in on this, or the viewers on the webinar's minds, is how's rental collection? So Leslie, you have actually quite a good point to maybe raise. Jacques, sorry, we're deflecting off the topic you're on.
Relevant.
But it's very, very relevant. And I've actually, over the course of yesterday and today, had a lot of conversations with different franchisees. So it'll be quite nice to open the forum up, and if people can just quickly type in there how your collections are. So I'll just share from a multitude of what I've heard. I've actually been blown away at the positivity. Thanks, Peter. 74% is head on the nail with what my office has done. 75% is my office. As you all heard me very pessimistically at one point, I was very afraid, and I was sort of high road 60%, low road 50% is what you guys heard. Peter Maritzburg, Sean, who's not in on this call last night, sent me a WhatsApp. I think he's 93% collections. We're hearing 93 also from Mareka. Paul this morning, I must open up the WhatsApp. Paul sent me a WhatsApp this morning. I think they were 80-something%. So I've been absolutely amazed at what we've managed to achieve from a collection perspective. Look at that there, 70, 78%, 82%. Ria, yes, I chatted to you yesterday. Ria, Grahamstown, 90%. Leslie, fantastic. Student accommodation, which is great. I know Lapelale, Kate and Gijs, I think Kate might even be in on the call. I spoke to Gijs this afternoon, also had good collections. I think sitting similar to our office around the 70-75%, which, you know, coming in where we now, the 8th of the month, I think we're not looking bad at all. I was really expecting a lot worse. So as much as it's not great. There we go, Kate, 88%, fantastic. I think it was Vredenburg where it was possibly a little bit lower that Gijs was mentioning. So I mean, Jerry, 80%, that's fantastic. I mean, you know, if you take us and our business, I can only just be really grateful. Jacques, you always ask me when we start a session of what I'm grateful for, and I tell you now, I have mentioned this once before, but I'm really, really grateful for this business model that we have. You know, I know the stress that's out there with many, many businesses. I've had a friend earlier on Monday on the call to me at the Joburg business who's pretty much thrown in the cap and ready to close. He's got an outlet of 2 lease stores and ready to close down, which is really sad. Today I met at our office with one of our tenants and co-owners in the office block, and he owns a tourism business that is a game reserve, very big game reserve, international clients. And he just said to me, we've buckled down, closed everything up. 12 months, we know we're out of business. So we hope we can weather the storm, but we've taken it into our projections that 12 months, we're going to close our lodges, close our operation, and we hope we can survive, because they don't see it turning around in 12 months in their tourism sector.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can really just count ourselves blessed. We're very fortunate, I think, to be in the position we are. And, you know, going into the president's announcement tonight at 8 o'clock, again, off the back of my conversation with Gijs, he might even be on the call with Kate. You know, as much as we're waiting in anticipation to hope that there's some good news, brace yourselves that if it's bad, we've got to deal with it, and we've got to deal with it in the best possible manner. It's not going to be the end of the world, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And you as leaders that are in on this call, hold yourselves high, stand tall. As people say, this too will end, and I think that light is close to the end of the tunnel now, and we're approaching the end. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the announcement, and really hope that there's going to be some good news for the real estate sector. And you're all in our thoughts. And yeah, Jacques, thank you very much for the session tonight. I don't know if there's anything you want to finish off with, Jacques, or if there's any comments that anyone wants to join.
Well, let's see if there's any comments, Paul. I just want to do a little wrap up just to remind everybody of what we've gone through. If there's any final comments, please post them. We'll catch them. But Seminar 1 was really about the cash flow forecast. We shared the model. Seminar 2 was also about cash flow forecast, but then we delved into the expenses. And I really want to urge you to maybe relook at that. I've had some of my clients, you know, depending on what industry you're in, but if you're at a level 2 or 3, you probably have to look at, you know, I don't want to be the doom's prophet, but you know, you've got to look worst case scenario. And that's, you know, August, September, October. You know, you've got to look at what would that look like. And I would rather just prepare for the worst. And if something better happens, then that's great. But relook at the cash flow forecast that we spoke about. Make sure that you're on top of that. Seminar 3 was really about the dashboard, the sales activities, and then Seminar 4 was about the value proposition. You know, really gaining the market share and making sure that you are relevant in the business going forward. And Paul, there's my contact details. If anybody wants to just, you know, ask me something about any of the seminars, or just wants to touch base, or haven't received any of the forms, just please pop me a mail or send me a WhatsApp, and I'd be very, very happy to share that with you. So Paul, from my side, thank you for the opportunity to be engaging with you and your team. Good luck. I know this is tough, but I think that, you know, you're right. You guys have got the right business model. You guys can actually pull it through to the other side. And then just keep your eye on the ball and do that with purpose. So thank you very much, Paul.
Well, thank you very much, Jacques. And firstly, well done, team, on those great collections that you've done. Proud of you all. You've definitely far surpassed my expectations, and I think maybe some of your own expectations. We are hearing from various places that deeds office is open. I know not everywhere, so some income is going to start to flow there to our agents, which I think is something we've all been waiting in anticipation. Is our poor agents are the ones on the raw end of the stick of this, and as we said tonight, hopefully going to be some good news. And if anyone's got any ideas of what they'd like us to possibly engage with more with Jacques, please send me also personally any comments. And possibly we can look at some other sessions. I know next week we've got some sessions with you and on coming out of COVID, not with Jacques. I know tomorrow, Jacques, we've got you all day. But please, as franchisees or staff out there on this call, if you've got any ideas of things that you'd possibly like us to reach out with Jacques, please feel free to contact Jacques also on your own. But Jacques, thank you for your valued time this past month on these evenings. Been greatly appreciated, and I hope you all got something out of it. And let's hold thumbs for tonight, and sterkte, as I say. We're going to come out of this just fine, and I think it's going to be guns blazing and great business going ahead. As tough as it is now, we're certainly going to come out of this smiling, I believe.
Great.
So thank you very much, Jacques.
Good evening.
Great evening to everyone.
Great. Thank you.